Hello, hello, and welcome to Feature Friday. I hope you have had a good week and that everything has been shaken loose and you are getting your ducks in a row, so to speak. And I'm just so happy for those of you that are just coming in. I see a couple of you online already. Thank you for always joining me. These conversations would not be half as much fun if I didn't have tribe to play with. So I appreciate you. I thank you for being here. And I have a wonderful guest to introduce you to today. Very, very small world. We both come from Bulawayo. We were both born in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe, and we both have a passion to really be the stewards for the earth and for the animals, and use our voices in a good way to really raise awareness to the plight of, especially not just the lions, but all the sentient beings that are really being threatened by habitat loss and poaching and trophy hunting and all those other awful things. So welcome, Tamar. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's lovely to find out that we're both from the same place. And of course, we're both been living in South Africa. I left about 15 years ago now, but still very much relate, to Mama Africa because she keeps calling me back. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to connect with you. Thank you for having me on today.
Oh, it's just great. I love these conversations because they really are just, on that vision of leaving the world a better place than we found it and doing whatever we can to just raise awareness. So I think that's such a beautiful point that you brought up, that even though we may not demographically be living on Mother Africa, on the soil here, when Africa is in your heart, it never leaves you. And I know that you do some wonderful tours out here, and people that know me, I have that journey on ancient soils that happens every September. So stay with us. And if you have any questions, hi, Karen, lovely to see you from Ontario, Canada. Super. And please, if you're jumping on here, please share this with your friends, anyone who loves animals, who wants to know more about the lions and hear what Tamar is up to. Please tag a friend, share this, like it. There will be a replay later on. So let's just sort of dive into it, Tamar. It's like, tell people a little bit about why this matters so much to you and this sacred wildlife trust that you've established.
Well, you'd be interested to hear that actually this initiated with a call from Mandla, and I didn't know it was Mandla at the time. I was having these dreams and these images and visions that were coming to me in my meditation of this beautiful male white lion. And it took a few years for me, but I eventually got back to South Africa, to Timbavati, and to the Global Wildlife Protection Trust, to go and have my own experience of them. Even though I had met white lions before, but they were in captivity at the Lion Park in Fourways, which was just up the road from where I used to live. Going back and having that experience was life-changing for me. There was no doubt I was being called in a different direction because anybody who doesn't know me, my background has been in event management for 28 years. And I have worked in many different countries at different levels in different types of events. And had, in some bizarre way, ended up bring animals back into my life again, remembering through a very interesting conversation I had one day with a white golden retriever, who, by the way, is one of my best large animal dogs, on the beach on New Year's Day. He started talking to me, and I thought I was going mad. However, it reminded me of my childhood and when I used to talk to animals when I was younger. And so I had this incredible emotion come flooding back, and all these memories coming back. Started dreaming about the white lions. Then went, to have that experience, but still didn't understand how that related to my background and my career. Even though my life was pretty much significantly changing. I had my awakening to new consciousness about 8 years ago, and I had already been on the path of personal development and really trying to find my own spiritual pathway. But after meeting Linda and after spending time with the lions, pretty much 6 days in tears, being really moved, I really understood what it is that I needed to do. I was trained in animal communication, but with the pets and domestic animals, I was like, that's not quite it for me. And so the message became clearer and clearer through my experiences with just connecting with, first of all, the white lions and then a number of other wild animals. And therefore, I put together my first adventure called The Journey into White Lion Magic, where I took a group of animal communicators from the US and from the UK to go and have their first experience of not only the white lions, but for a lot of them of Africa and all the wildlife. And it was a profound experience for us all. Even as a facilitator, you get to have your own experience. You're not excluded from it, but you're there to really hold the space where you have theirs. And it was significantly life-changing for so many of those people, as well as, of course, myself. I was then called to do an adventure, and this is what tends to happen, is I leave it up to the universe, and I end up, even though I might have ideas of what I want to do, the universe is really clear. Sends me messages like, nice, and this is actually where we want you to focus on. Yeah. So the next one was the elephants in Kenya, and specifically in Kenya. Our adventure was always to support endangered wildlife species trusts. So obviously the Global Wildlife Protection Trust, which we do in South Africa, and then the David Childrick Wildlife Trust in Kenya. So in September this year, I took another group of, they always tend to be ladies for some reason. I think it's that nurturing essence in our deep connection, as females to other sentient beings, and took them on a magnificent trip that we had into the land, the people, and of course the incredible animals that you come into contact with. We spent a lot of time at the David Childrick Wildlife Trust at the orphanage. We adopted 15 orphans, which we're then going to continue to sponsor for as long as we possibly can. We'll keep back to those each year. We then went to the boy reintegration centers, so the older orphans, that the teenagers that were being reintegrated back into the wild, so a lot less human contact and so on. Fascinating and really worthwhile if anybody wants to go and do a purposeful kind of travel, to make sure they're including something like what the David Childrick Wildlife Trust includes. And so, yes, we had 10 fantastic days in Kenya. I was named the White Maasai by the chief of our Maasai village that we went to see.
What an honor.
which was beautiful, really beautiful. But it picked up that I was from Africa straight away, even though, I could be from, Europe, very much with my colouring and stuff. But no, they knew straight away that I was from Africa, which was wonderful. Probably my big African bottom. Anyway, and you know what? It felt like I went home because my personal experience was incredible. And so I've decided now to go and spend a few years in Kenya, getting more hands-on with wildlife projects that are actually happening there, because that's something that's really been missing for me. I currently live in Spain, which is very nice, very easygoing, but they're not massive in animal advocacy, as you can imagine. And so I don't feel like it's really home to me. Going back to Kenya was incredible. It was like my soul's home. I'm looking at planning on doing that next year. But before that, we decided to initiate, and this really came from a lot of people who follow my journey come on our trips, who said we would love something of what we learn and do and what you share and the education that you give us on these trips to access online easily. And so that's what we have started with the Sacred Wildlife Project, which we launched just a month ago. And actually, we've just recently launched the crowdfunding campaign, which ends today. Today is our very last day in raising money to actually build this online community and portal, this website and membership site, where we're going to be hopefully sharing a lot of very unique and different initiatives that are happening around the world at a grassroots level, because this is a really important part about supporting charities, is ensuring that money goes down to the grassroots level. As well as fundamentally what makes us unique and different to any other wildlife trust, organisation or charity is that we're going to give the animals a seat at the table. We're going to give them a voice. You know, all the magnificent wildlife organisations out there that are doing incredible things to help our endangered wildlife, their work is so profound. And I just feel that we need to take it to another level. This awakening in consciousness, this change in us understanding how we truly connect with the planet, how we connect with each other and other sentient beings, really needs to come into the conversation now about wildlife conservation. Not just the practical applications of it, but also the more soul level applications.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that this community really helps people to come from a positive motivation rather than a fear motivation. That they connect deeply with the animals, particularly the ones that they really love, because we all have our favorite wildlife animals that we really connect with. And there is a significant reason for that. That's part of the education that we teach people. And obviously this interspecies communication, which everybody can do, we're actually born with that ability. We're just out of practice, if you like, is very much the core of our wildlife project. So we've been very grateful. We've had so many amazing supporters who've either shared it, donated to it, contributed to it, and we've got some fantastic gifts and perks that we're giving in response to those donations. And so it's off to a really wonderful start. And hopefully we get to deliver what people are really looking for. So in summary, that's kind of where I'm at the moment and the project that we're working on. We have a number of events that we're going to be doing as well next year. One of the other ones we want to focus on is also the sacred white animals, as white lions make up the spirit, what they call the spirit animals. Yeah. So, you know, the buffalo, the white bear, the spirit bear, the white ravens, now the white giraffes are showing up. A lot of white spirit animals are starting to show up. And I'm sure you know that they do this because, and they only come when humanity is in dire straits. In other words, it's a warning. And so we're going to be covering a lot of that in the coming year around the significance of that. Because, of course, a lot of the Indigenous history and culture knows all about the sacred spirit animals, the white animals, and the meaning of being returned to the earth.
You mentioned so many things there, and I would love to just touch on a couple of them, because I think, you know, I think it's important, and these really are conversations that are very honest and very direct and truthful. And we're not really saying, you know, I never sort of purport that I know everything, but I think it's important to speak to the concerns that a lot of people have around donating to charities, even on a local scale, because I know that I once was of that sort of point of view that I don't want to give money to a charity or to a foundation because I don't know whether it's going to go into the administration or if the animals actually benefit from it. And I think this is a very sort of worldwide concern that people have, that they don't really see where their money's going. And why I always say, you know, instead of putting up the negatives or saying what if or I can't, is look at the possibilities of how can you ensure that your money, your resources, your time goes to the concerns that you care about and actually does make a difference. Because if we all kind of stand back and go, oh, you know, I don't want to give, it kind of shuts the whole sort of reciprocity and the spirit or the nature of things down. And I think that's very much a part of the transparency, what I love about your GoFundMe. And please post the link on this. We'll post the link later if you guys want to contribute. Just read it. And if you have any questions, get hold of Tamar and ask her, you know, how you can, what you're going to be getting as well as giving. Because I think that's another thing, is like we're coming, as you said, those white animals, that consciousness energy that's coming in the 5D. I know they've been and you've probably seen this as well, their visibility of the white ones that are being born become more and more frequent. And we've also heard horrible stories about, I think someone the other day killed a beautiful white moose who was in one of the, I think, Yellowstone Park or something. So what would you say to people from your perspective on this age-old concern as the time
I would say so we're not a charity, okay? So we're a project, and there's a reason I'm not a charity, because we will ask for money for specific things that we need to actually create in order to facilitate certain things. But we won't be asking people to donate all the time. What we'll be doing is saying, hey, these are the organizations that we believe can make a significant difference on the grassroots level. Why? Because we know them. We vetted them, we've seen them in action, we know what they're doing. Because I think part of the problem is who do you go and support? Now, most of us will support a charity for an animal we actually really love and connect with. That's usually how we make our choice, especially when it comes to wildlife. The WWF, for instance, does fantastic work, but there is, unfortunately, if you scratch beneath the surface, there's all kinds of stories that go on behind them. Because when money is involved, unfortunately, strange things start to happen, and people and organizations lose their focus. So I'm all for the smaller, more focused, grassroots level individuals that are working on a day-to-day level, helping the animals. And so we'll be recommending that actually, if you want to give some money, put it there. But more than that, we actually want to say, get more involved. It's not just about giving money, and it's very generous to do that. But and I know this might be controversial, but I'm going to go there. Giving money is a guilt thing for us.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
It's to make us feel better about what's going on in the world, and that's why we give money. However, I think we can change that in ourselves. That's okay in one aspect, but what we've got to do is look at much more about us also receiving. What are we getting in response to this? How are we willing to put more into it rather than just giving money? Getting more focused. So, for instance, one of the wonderful ladies we had on our trip who has 490-something elephants in her house, not real elephants, of course, statue elephants around her house. She knows, and the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust is her favorite place to be. She knows everything about every one of those elephants. She gets so personally involved, but she's sitting in Ontario, in Vancouver, in Canada. She's visited them once, and that was on our trip. But she is so engaged and so devoted to them, and knows so much about them, and helps to promote what they're doing, and not just giving. And so we want to encourage more of that. And we believe that when we heart-center connect, like we do through intuition and through interspecies communication, animal communication, that it inspires us to take that extra level of commitment, because it's needed. We can't just leave it up to those organizations. And something else I also share is about taking personal responsibility in the way that we live day to day.
Yeah.
And that does affect our wildlife. It affects all life in our planet. So things like not using as much plastic. What is your footprint on a day-to-day basis? How can you live a conscious lifestyle? And then in business, if you're in a job, are you happy? Are you living your full purpose? Are you following your heart's desire? Because when we're in a better space and a better heart place, we can then help others. But of course, we have to start with ourselves. Yeah. So if your job is not satisfying you, find one that is. Find one that's meaningful and purposeful for you. If you're in business, make sure that your collaborations with your clients and the principles by which you run your business is in a more conscious way. And conscious business is now becoming, a new movement in the world. It's spreading right across the world very, very quickly. And all of it is about us individually becoming much more conscious and much more aware and much more connected to the planet and to all the sentient beings, and how we can help protect them. We
Yeah.
really want to bring that through our project.
Yeah. You've said so many beautiful things again, and you go so quickly. I can't kind of catch up with the art. But yeah, I think I think that's the point is that it's yes, the money is a resource that we all know. It's a universal currency. But I really believe, and this is part of what the animals and the shamanic journey have taught me, is that love is the new currency of money. So in order to give of anything, your time, your resources, in the choices that you're making, as you said, because we are all looking for ways to heal this brokenness, is that there is no other alternative, I don't think, than to become conscious and to raise our awareness to what is going on, whether that is, the turtles in Costa Rica, where their eggs are being, taken for food and they're being threatened. It doesn't matter what the concern is. I just think that choosing one, start with one and really look at what we were discussing before the call is the time of the Me Too movement. I coined it the We Too movement. And I've been speaking about this probably for the last 15 years of when will we, as women, as you said, as the keepers of the earth, because we are all feeling, all seeing, all knowing, sensitive creatures. And I'm not saying that men aren't. I know a lot of incredibly sensitive men that are doing great stuff. But that we have to gather to offer that sort of focused intentionality. The gratitude and the blessing of the earth has to come by blessing each other. We cannot co-opt this competition thing anymore. And I've certainly seen that in the consciousness field and in amongst animal communicators. And I think that's really part of this message of the white, all of the sentience, but specifically the sightings of these white animals is there is a connection to beautiful animals like the lions or the elephants because they open our hearts. Absolutely. They remind us who we are, and we are animals.
Absolutely. Let's forget that, we are an animal species.
Yeah.
And we are the only ones that have to pay money to live on our own planet, which doesn't. And the other element I think that women are better at, and we also have to step up ourselves, is working together.
Exactly.
What we were saying earlier is that you have lots of incredible women all around the world, particularly animal communicators, animal healers, who are all working to help change the world in their own particular way. What we need to be doing is working together more. And I think collaboration and co-creation is going to be really profound going forward as we join up.
Yeah, we have to come together. I always say we can go so much further together than we can apart. Yeah. But we have to get rid of this old paradigm of the 3D reality that's all about, what I'm going to lose, or there's not enough to go around. And I think, as you were talking to earlier, it's just like there's so many ways that we can help, but we have to start by opening our hearts. We have to start by actually starting to realize that we are enough, that there is, that law of sufficiency is there, but it starts with each and every one of us giving what we can in a good way, and knowing that we're doing the best that we can. So, I just think
the project is much more about women and men included. And I really wish we could get more men involved in this, because their feminine side is arising within them, which is very, very powerful. And that combination of masculine and feminine, the balance of that is obviously, the ultimate that we're all trying to get to. But the coming together, the sharing of ideas, the debating, the discussions, the sharing of knowledge, experiences, is really what we're hoping to achieve through our project. It's bringing everybody to the table. This is not just about us and what we're going to give other people. This is about collectively what we're going to do, and we call them our partners, of anybody that's involved or wants to be involved in what we're doing. I had somebody contact me about veganism. Are we going to include veganism as an important part of the platform? Absolutely. And we're going to include discussions around that, because we also have an issue with regards to the way we treat our plant food as well. It may be different to the animal abuse, but it's definitely abuse of plants, and I want to bring that to the table. So they're going.
Everything holds consciousness, and we know that. You know, the plants feel, the trees feel, everything feels. And I think it is really about that raising that awareness that is so needed right now. And also to just celebrate that a lot of people are concerned. A lot of people are waking up, and that we can't all do it at once, but it's in the 1-degree shifts. And that's what we have to sort of keep focus on. It. This is not about us. It's about the sustainability of the planet and our own survival, our own humanity. We remember our humanity.
Absolutely. You know, and one of the things in any ecosystem is that whenever you take and this was the story of the wolves in Yellowstone Park was a pure example of this. That when you take out the apex predator out of an ecosystem, you're unbalancing nature. And Mother Nature has a way of sorting that out, okay, which we really don't want to have to face because it's quite extreme. So, you know, in that particular example, you know, when they brought the wolves back in is when the balance came back within a year to that park. And it's the same for our lions in South Africa. You know, when I left, there were 150,000 lions. Now there are less than 20,000 lions. That's, what, 18, 19 years? It's very scary. If you take out the apex predator and look, you know, there's all the concerns around tourism and, you know, just the awful thought that you may not be able to see them in the wild. It's just inconceivable. But beyond that, it's the conservation, it's the balance, it's the ecosystem. If you take out the main predator out of Africa's wilderness, we're going to have massive problems that we couldn't even imagine that we could have. And the reason that we're not paying enough attention to it at the moment is because we've become so detached. And when I say we, I mean collectively.
Correct,
especially our governments. You know, governments saying that animals aren't sentient beings. You know, people claiming, presidents claiming that climate change doesn't exist. You know, this kind of way of thinking is what's not helpful to our planet. However, you know, I'm a person of great hope and great positivity because I believe in the numbers. I believe in the individual people. And all we do is bring it to a point that it tips over in the right direction. And so the more of us that are getting involved, the more of us that are connecting, the more of us that are engaging with each other and helping each other, I think the greater amount of success we can do. And it not being from a fear base. I really want it to be from a positive base. Because honestly, there are so many millions of people around the world that are doing fantastic things. I share it every day on my Facebook page, on my groups, on my the Sacred Wildlife Project page. I share all the great stuff, all the good news. Because you know, media shows enough of the negative news. And so a lot of people spend time sharing bad news. And I'm not interested. I know that it exists. I'm not blind to it. I don't want to give it any energy. What I want to do is look for the solution, and I want to help other people.
Yeah, I love that. Hi, Malcolm. Malcolm says, I love what you're both saying in terms of moving from the head to the heart, and we have to start somewhere. And for me, it's self-love and self-respect that then helps us respect everything around us and show us how we're connected. In fact, we are not connected to everything. We are everything. And I love that. And it's so true, Malcolm. I think that's really the message that we're kind of unified in, is that if we separate and we have away from nature, we've lost our own true nature. So we have to go back to accessing what that means to us and what matters and where we're putting our resources and our time and our love into that. And in the same breath, you know, I have days where sometimes I can't look at Facebook at the horrendous unconscious acts that are done. But in the same breath, I think it's important where you spend your time. And we need to educate ourselves. This is part of your initiative, is to inform people, give them information so that they can, and I think this goes for everything, is I always say, trust what's true and light for you and throw out the rest. But be willing to know that as your wisdom evolves, as you as a spiritual being evolves, that you may you get to change your mind.
Yeah.
You know, trust what's true for you now.
Yeah.
Follow that. And there's, like you said, there's just so many places to put our concern. It's, you know, the bees are in trouble. We all know what that means. If you've ever watched Barry the Bee movie, you know, there's so much in that. Avatar for me was profoundly, it was just like, oh, finally somebody is feeling what is in my heart and speaking it to the masses.
So that's why my adventures are called My Avatar Adventures, and the colors and everything are the same as the movie. I've watched it 26 times because in my reality, I have a knowing that exists, that the principles of what is shared there exists somewhere in whatever universe parallel to ours. And it felt like I knew what they were talking about. It felt like I knew that place.
Yeah. And I think that's what most highly sensitive empaths and intuitive, which make up all of my tribe and most of the people that get involved in this work, they are the ones that know that they're the visitors here, and that we're visitors on this planet. It is not ours. There's no ownership over anything. And we have to
dominion, and quite frankly, as a species, when you look at other species and how they work coherently and in harmony with each other, and how they keep the balance no matter what happens in the environment, compared to what we do, it's very obvious who are the more intelligent sentient. But hey, I don't want. When people say I prefer animals to humans, I'm always reminding them that humans are animals.
We are part of nature.
One of the first steps that I encourage people to take is to go and find the animal within. Reconnect with the animal within you. Go back into nature, and we are everything. I agree with Malcolm. It's not just about connecting to everything. We are everything. But I think that sometimes it's a little too far a step for people to really get that concept, and maybe just reconnecting with what feels like nature. Because it's funny, because whenever people want to go on holiday, they go into nature. Usually. I mean, yes, some people like to go to the cities, but generally people like to go and relax. They want to go to the beach, or they want to go to the forest, or they want to go climbing. They go back into nature because it's instinctive and inherent in us. When I remember thinking, okay, so wildlife are definitely going to be the focus of where I need to put my energy. And I went, okay, endangered wildlife. Now let me look up endangered wildlife. Well, I was horrified to see how many endangered wildlife there were, as well as plants, never mind animals. And, I sat at the end of my bed. I remember at 3 o'clock in the morning because I'd woken up with this desperate sorrow about this. And I thought, okay, I understand. I get a lot of it's not mine. A lot of it was not mine. I was just taking it on because it was my learning for me to move on. And I then sat and I researched and I went, okay, so and I asked Source to direct me. I said, how do I know, where do I go from here? How do I know what to focus on? Where do I start? And she's message that I got, I put it as she, just simply said, start with those that you love, those that you connect with. Thank you, Malcolm. I see you. That's very true. I love that. So deep, isn't it? Because I see you. And so you have to start with those, that you really connect and love. And start anyway. It doesn't matter. Just do your own little bit, whether it's, from the seat inside your house or whether it's out in, doing wildlife conservation, or whether it's just sharing on Facebook. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're saying and what we're all in agreement of is it starts with us. And what the chemicals are you're pouring down the drain, and how you're living your life, and how much consumerism are you buying into, and it's those changes that make huge shifts.
And it doesn't always make you popular.
I always say I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to effect some change. So Most people aren't going to be part of this, and I think that the important thing in all of this is just what the animals are constantly telling us, and what we learn when we walk the spiral path of shamanism is everything is equal. We are no more important than the ant that walks across the table, and the ant is no more important than us. But it's that kind of allowance where you were mentioning, you know, I used to be one of those people that said, I much prefer the company of animals to people. It's the truth, I do. But I also realized that in order for me to touch people in a way to get them back to caring, to get them back to their true nature, that's where we have to do the work. So it's about total allowance, total compassion for the choices that people are making without judgment. And I don't know if we ever stop judging, but it's certainly something that we can strive towards. So,
and especially with pets and domesticated animals, you know, because we want to domesticate animals, you know, cats and dogs used to be wild. So a lot, you know, horses used to be wild, cows used to be wild. So all of our domesticated animals that we have brought into our society and our existence for our benefit, unfortunately now we are 100% completely responsible for them for that reason. And therefore we do have to step up, and we cannot forego those responsibilities. I'm a big advocate for rewilding. You know, especially with horses, especially with cows or any domesticated farm animals, don't bring them into the house. Don't make them pets. Try not to give them names. and the reason I say that is, and it's very difficult to do that a lot of the time because they are so domesticated, and in fact they are unable to be put back into the wild. But if there is a possibility of doing that, then allow that, because that is their natural state. If not, just look after them and have respect for them in a way that is good for them, not so much good for us as human beings. You know, this need for us to constantly touch and physically pet actually is not that great for all animals. There are some animals that definitely need it, like the little baby orphan elephants. You know, they need that physical touch and love, because that's the way that they are brought up in the natural herd. So of course, as humans, we need to do that. However, you know, try to do it as little as possible when you don't need to do it. In other words, it's not for our gratification, because we need that.
Well, I think that's, you know, and I think just in wrapping up this conversation, because I know you and I could talk for ages, and I'm sure we will have more of these conversations. So if you're listening to this, I know we've got about 6 different time zones on here. If you're listening to the replay and you have questions for Tamar about any of this, or you'd like us to explore something further in this conversation, obviously we're just skimming the surface here of a lot of very deep matters that are very emotionally charged. But I just want to say thank you, Tamar, for your insight, your wisdom, your aligned action, because I think that's very much what we're being called to right now. Is we've got to experience the choices that we're making in action. We're going to grow as self-realized beings and come together in a way that is spiritually mature, that doesn't involve ego or emotions that are often take us, as you said, away from why we're choosing to show up and do what we're doing in the first place. So I always like to end these interviews by asking you a question, and then I would love it if so I'm going to ask you this question, and then I'd love to pull a card. I'd love for us both to pull an animal card and just sort of use that as an anchor for people to go into their weekend with some thoughts. So my question is, how do you trust fully?
I've had some interesting experiences with that. I have had to let go and trust the universe. I have an understanding and knowing now that I didn't have before, that no matter what happens, Source has my back and the universe has my best interest. And I don't look at anything as being right or wrong. I just look at it as being an experience. And so I trust implicitly, like faith. I have implicit trust that whatever is meant to happen will happen, and all it is an experience. And so, yes, my trust is based on faith, not faith in a religious term, but faith in an energy, an entity source that knows and sees so much more than I could even personally conceive. And so I trust their judgment much more over mine, because I can only see a very, very small sliver of my reality. And so, yes, I let go, I surrender. And I struggle with that, especially because I have a event management background. So even with my events, it's like, control, control, control. And every time I do that, I get the lesson to let go. And every time I let go and I surrender and I trust, everything works perfectly.
Stunning. Stunning.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a beautiful weekend wherever you are. And let's pull a card, Tamar. I'll let you go first if you'd like. Would you like to pull a card?
I haven't got my pack with me.
All right. So let's
I've only got the ones that I pulled for I'm moving house. So I'm literally packed up at the moment.
Okay. All right. So I'll just sort of tune into this urgent plea and ask what the animals want us to know about all of this. And that's really interesting. So it comes from the Pride Life. These are the cards from the White Lion Hearted Leadership. These are Linda Tucker's cards for any of you that don't know her. And I love this because it's part of community. We're talking about Pride Life and its groom. Mm-hmm. And I think that is just, isn't that really just back to remind us to take care of each other, I just got the goosebumps, to take care of the planet, to take care of the animals, and to really tend to our own internal gardens if we're going to affect change on the outside. So look at where you can deepen into trust that the universe has your back, that life has your back, that the animals see us and they don't want us to come from a place of separation or a place of exclusion or ranking, but to really come home to our hearts in this great universal web of oneness that we're all so committed to returning to. So take care of your relationships. I think that's really been the theme of December, is to look at how you are in relation to your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, what's the truth for you, and also relations with others, because we can go so much further together than we can apart. And I honor you. I see you all. I thank you, Tamar, for being here. And have a beautiful weekend, everybody, wherever you are. Bye.
Thanks, darling. Take care. Bye.